Just what is Street Fighter? To make it simple, Street Fighter is a game, a fighting game to be exact, an old game that debuted in 1987, or as most people think or say, it debuted in 1991. Yes, Street Fighter 2 was so much better than its predecessor that we don't even acknowledge the game's existence. The graphics were so much better, the gameplay was improved, everything was just off the charts. But more importantly, what makes Street Fighter 2 so special? What made it stand out and bring people in? It's not like it was the only game on the market at the time. I mean, other titles did exist. But something about this title lit fire to the world. It made people want to play it. Was it the characters who seemed to pop and be so full of life? Or even the catchy tunes that till this day its successors still can't match? Or maybe it was a story that captivated its audience. Why exactly is Street Fighter 2 so special? At the time, Street Fighter 2 was life. Well, gaming life to be specific. The title was a mega smash hit and everyone wanted to play it. It was a fighting game taken to a whole new level. For many, it wasn't just a great fighting game. It was a great all-around game. Simply put, Street Fighter 2 was gaming. It was at the time the pinnacle of gaming, the peak. The graphics were super crisp and smooth, and the combo system, which we now know was a glitch, was second to none and fun. Playing the game was effortlessly and intuitive, and seeing the cool colors for the stages, characters, and moves really set it apart from the competition. You had 8 fighters representing a different region in the world, and you felt it. Each stage popped with character and vibrancy. It made you feel like you were in that part of the world. There was so much individuality that it made you want to test out each character, and also find out who was the strongest. For me, this was Street Fighter 2's greatest achievement, the characters. The biggest reason I love Street Fighter are the characters and their story. And no, I'm not going to pretend that Street Fighter has a jaw-dropping narrative that has you on the edge of your seat. I mean, the plot is very basic. It can even be considered elementary by today's standards. At the time, though, you didn't care. I mean, I certainly didn't care. I was fascinated picking these characters and finding out their purpose and goal, the reason why they were fighting. Characters like Ryu and Chun-Li really pulled me in and had me fascinated, especially Chun-Li. Now, obviously, she has major sex appeal. I mean, just look at her. And being a young, curious boy didn't really help my case. But it wasn't just her appearance that pulled me. It was her, the character. I was thinking, man, we got a bunch of fighters who are big, strong men, and here you have this small-looking girl who's gonna match up with them. I would argue her physical appearance wasn't that huge a factor back then, compared to the way she's portrayed now. I mean, as you see in the later games, that would obviously change as it now made her incredibly sexy and attractive. But then you just want to know why she was fighting in a crowd of men, and what exactly she could do. Then of course you had Ryu, the main character of the whole thing, although at the time you didn't know that. We just assumed he was because, I mean, his face appeared first on the character select screen, and he was on the cover art. Usually two key big indicators of, main protagonist. Majority of us picked him because he looked really strong. Around that time, everyone had seen The Karate Kid, a cool martial arts movie from the 80s, and Ryu resembled that look. Karate gi, check. Fighter, check. Headband tied around his head, check. You saw him, and you knew my man meant business. He also resembled the mercenary soldier Rambo. Either way you looked at him, you said, yeah, I'm doing damage with this guy. I remember beating the game with Ryu and seeing his ending. Seeing the podium of 3rd place and 2nd place finishers, Sagat and Bison. The 1st place spot was empty, and Ryu was nowhere to be seen. Instead of attending the victory ceremony, Ryu just left. He left already searching for the next big fight. And as he said, victory means nothing to him. the fight is everything. As a child, I couldn't really grasp this thought. Why wouldn't you want to be celebrated as a champion? What exactly is he looking for and striving to become? Again, it's a simple ending, but for me, it was pretty deep. Now, as much as I love that ending of Street Fighter as a whole, my biggest disappointment with Street Fighter would have to be the story. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, wait, you said that story is what drew you in, and now you're saying it's the biggest problem with the franchise. When I mentioned story earlier, I meant the character's individual story, and giving them a reason to fight. I may never agree with each of their reasons or thought they were well thought out, but I love the fact that there was a reason. What bothers me is that this was Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter 2 was years ago. I mean, I was in elementary school at the time, and now I'm a full-grown man. How is it that we fast forward to now, and the characters are still fighting for the same reasons they were back then? How is it that these characters haven't really changed or grown at all? I mean, I would love to see the day-to-day lives of these fighters and what they do. What's their vice? What gets them going? I mean, we get profiles of them that explain their likes and dislikes, but I wish Capcom really delved into their personalities. I mean, as much as we know Ryu and Chun-Li, do we really know Ryu and Chun-Li? We have brief generalizations of them and their characters, but there's zero interaction between all of them. As I play the later games, they all give blank responses to one another, and really just act like associates at work. I really wish we got a nice little story about the fighters to give us insight into their lives. That's why I love when they do a comic adaptation or an animated special, because we tend to get more out of those than the game itself. I mean, SNK, Capcom's main competitors at the time, were far ahead of Capcom in this regard. Now, me being a Capcom and Street Fighter guy, I clearly preferred Capcom and Street Fighter, but SNK definitely did story better. Now, I'm not a big fan of the SNK story, but I do love how the characters have personality. They all respond to each other, and you feel like you know them. You feel like the characters actually kind of grow and interact with each other. Of course, except for a few like Kyo and some others, but still, they do a good job of bringing their personality to the screen. Now, I don't think you can blame Street Fighter 2 because it was the very first game of the series. Well, not the first game of the series, but you get the point. It was Capcom introducing us to these great characters and telling us how awesome they will be. I just wish we could go back to that feeling of learning and wonder. Street Fighter 2 characters felt so different. Now it's just formulaic. Ryu was always stone-faced and quiet, but in a way he was less boring than he is now, if that makes sense. Street Fighter 2 did a great job of giving you a little, but then making you want more. They didn't feel like cheap anime characters that fit a model we all look for and see. I mean, I was obsessed with Ryu's need to become better, his need to always chase that thing, and his drive for self-improvement. Things I very much feel to this day. This, in a nutshell, was Street Fighter 2. Characters coming together to fight in a tournament for some purpose, whether for self-improvement, to test themselves, or to avenge someone close and dear to them. I know I've spoken at large about narrative when it comes to Street Fighter 2, but Street Fighter is definitely more than just narrative. I mean, it was really just a damn good game. It was pretty close to fighting game perfection at the time. I don't think it can be overstated how big a deal this game was. It was pretty much our Fortnite. The game was in every arcade and laundromat. When you went to a friend's house, you asked to play Street Fighter. That was the way to pass time, and that was the game to play. That was your measure if you were a cool kid or not as cool. Just how now you gather with your friends and you play Call of Duty or NBA 2K. Back then it was Street Fighter. That's what everyone was playing and talking about in school. The feeling I had when playing the game was immaculate. Now I know the era always had something to do with it. I mean, at the time life was definitely simpler and less complicated. I mean, that's why the game is forever special to me. That nostalgic feeling I get when I hear Guile's theme is really unmatched. It takes you back to such an incredible time, and when the game was just the best thing in the world. It's weird seeing the game in the spot it's in now. I mean, I understand that things change, and with the advancement of technology, this game will become smaller and smaller. But I can't deny that it still hurts to see it's such a small circle. I mean, you mention the word Hadoken and people look at you like, the hell is that? Fighting games, in particular, Street Fighter, have shrunk so much it still amazes me. I mean, after being king for so long, they're simply spectators in the gaming scene. I mean, I don't even know what gaming is anymore. But I do know what Street Fighter is, and that is love. Take care, my friends.